Hey guys, welcome to the pod.
The Pea Pod. I'm Ladle.
And I'm Peas.
And we have a full ladle of peas just for you.
So let's get to it. That's what the music's for. The music does that part.
Yeah, I know.
The Spotify.
We are up on Spotify now.
We're on Spotify. And
so you can go listen
PJ told me that we're
Spotify.
PJ told me that we're also on Apple Podcasts right now too.
Oh, and Apple Podcasts.
I looked for it and I haven't found it, but I guarantee by the time this is up, it will be on Apple Podcasts.
Apple Podcast.
Apple Podcast.
Apple Podcast.
Can we be on? Can we be on? Can we be on Amazon Music?
What
is that a thing?
That's asking a lot. Be glad that we're on Spotify.
I know, but then my dad can say, Alexa, play Ladle and Peas' most recent episode.
No.
Okay. No.
PJ says no.
I think he can link it to Apple because like I can do it on mine because mine will say it's linked to Spotify, so I can do it from my Alexa.
If you make the Apple or the Amazon account, I think I can link the RSS feed to Omni and have it distributed, maybe.
Oh, okay. Well, we'll look into that. That'd be fun.
Sure.
And then also, this will be our last recording. We're going spring break, so we'll be gone for 2 weeks.
Spring break.
So this will go up on Wednesday, and then we'll be gone the week after that, and then the week after that we'll be here, but we'll have to record that week.
And so it'll come out the week
after that. Yes.
2 weeks from when you're hearing this, the next episode will be out.
Yeah. Good.
So.
Good counting. So if you want to open your Bibles now to
Colossians.
the Word of God, Colossians
3,
chapter 3,
12,
verses 12
through
17. This is so cool because I know that there are people who are listening to this now just on Spotify, and that's really fun to think about.
Yeah.
So, hello, listeners. This is the first time now since we started that we.
Yeah.
I remember the first couple episodes we were like, "Oh, we're gonna have this up next Saturday. It's gonna be great." Everything.
It's been a semester.
It's been a lot of time. Wait, no disses on the. Anyway, okay, let's read. Is it? It's me, correct?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's what we agreed upon.
Yep. Colossians chapter 3, verse 12. Put on then, as God's chosen ones, holy and beloved, compassionate hearts, kindness, humility, meekness, and patience, bearing with one another, and if one has a complaint against another, forgiving each other, as the Lord has forgiven you. So you also must forgive. And above all these, put on love, which binds everything together in perfect harmony. And let the peace of Christ rule in your hearts, to which indeed you were called in one body, and be thankful. Let the word of Christ dwell in you richly, teaching and admonishing one another in all wisdom, singing psalms and hymns and spiritual songs with thankfulness in your hearts to God. And whatever you do, in word or deed, do everything in the name of the Lord Jesus, giving thanks to God, the Father, through him. Wives, submit to your husbands is the next
That's
verse.
the next part, but it's National Women's Day, so we're not going to get into that right now.
Well, it's a verse directed to women, so.
It is a verse directed to women.
Anyway.
Paul wrote this.
Paul wrote this. Thank you.
After he already wrote to the Corinthians, meaning he already gave his whole spiel about love to the Corinthians.
Love.
And I feel like part of this is a little bit of a callback to the love is patient, love is kind, does not boast or envy.
Oh, yeah.
You know, when he gets into, where is it?
Chapter 12.
And above all these, put on love, which binds everything together in perfect harmony. He's like, Corinthians.
Yeah, I can see that.
To that.
It's a great passage about love, and I don't know. It's
love,
very
thankfulness, forgiveness, wisdom.
like the fruits of the Spirit. Similar.
That's crazy.
That's crazy. Which is where is the fruit of the Spirit? That's in. Oh dear.
Oh no. We're Bible students.
Put on the bread. No, that's the armor of God. Love, peace, patience, kindness. Where is that?
Galatians? Yeah.
It must be Galatians, right?
Galatians.
Yeah, that was just a test. We were testing you guys.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's one of
It's definitely not in Ephesians.
I'm
Is it?
sure it's in Galatians.
Yes, it's Galatians. It's Galatians chapter 5, verses
Good job, PJ.
22.
Okay. Anyway, fruits
Yes.
of the Spirit. There's a few, major themes of the New Testament in this little paragraph. Just like... Oh, no, not that one.
So this first verse, put on then as God's chosen ones, holy and beloved. There's other translations that say elect, holy elect people, chosen ones. This is a pretty big label to be put on a human, just reading that, being chosen and holy and beloved, that's a huge piece to think about when it comes to God's love for us, because being chosen is a lot different than being, just happened to be in God's kingdom. I think when Jesus died and paid for our salvation, it was an act of love and an act of choice. Jesus didn't have to go to the cross, but he chose to. I mean, he had to go to the cross for the payment of our sins, but he didn't have to save us at all, but he chose to. So I think that being chosen and being elect is a really important part that needs to be mentioned here, and that's why he says it. But then, because you're chosen, put on compassionate hearts and kindness and humility, meekness and patience. These are all descriptions of Jesus and how he was here when he lived. He was compassionate and kind and humble and meek and patient, and so. I think it's just another way that Paul points back to, hey, since he did this for you and he chose you, live like him. That's what he's asked you to do. And he even says that, bearing with one another, and if one has a complaint against another, forgiving each other as the Lord has forgiven you, so must you forgive.
And even at the end, and whatever you do in word or deed, do everything in the name of the Lord Jesus, giving thanks to God the Father through him.
It's always about whatever you do it because Jesus did it first, So I think that's really the root of everything Paul is saying here, and why you're doing what you're doing is purely because of the immense sacrifice that he did. It's not like now that he's done this, you have to do this. It's more of a do this because you want to, because you're thankful and you're appreciative is too dumb of a word. You're just an outpouring of love for what he's done for you. It's
also kind of getting into the theme of like works and faith, and you can't do just works, and you can't live by like faith.
It's tricky because
faith alone necessarily, but you should do these things because you want to, and you want to be more like Jesus. And so if you're faithful, then you will be doing these things that are works, and good job.
If you're worried about that, works and these things, the fruits of the Spirit, come out of faith, basically. So I think the reason it's called the fruits of the Spirit is because it's something that grows naturally. You don't go up to a fruit tree and start stapling on pears and say, these are my fruit that I've grown. You just put it on there. You can't force something. I think a lot of people tend to take the fruits of the Spirit and this list of being patient and kind and meek and patient, and all these things that Paul is asking you to do. I think people take this context and they say, well, I need that, and I need to pray for that. And you should pray for those things, but don't pray for them as if, like, well, I'm not doing these, so I'm not being a good enough Christian. It will come out of you if that's how you're living. That sounded convoluted. I mean, based on I don't know how to say it. You don't understand what I'm saying, right?
Yes.
It's an outpouring. It's fruit that grows naturally.
Yes.
And God will produce that in you and through you. You don't do it yourself. So that's just an encouragement for people who feel like trapped, like, oh, I'm not doing enough work, so I'm not being good enough. But it's not that's not the point. It's supposed to come naturally. So there's also a good bit in here about like division, like putting on love and living in perfect harmony and forgiving each other. That's something very similar to what he said to the Corinthians about divisions. So I think that's another thing that he's pointing out, and it's important to realize that that's like a repeated theme here.
Yeah, he talks about in verse 16 as well, let the word of Christ dwell in you richly, teaching and admonishing one another in all wisdom, singing psalms, hymns, and spiritual songs with thankfulness in your hearts to God. And singing psalms, hymns, and spiritual songs is a way of teaching and admonishing to one another. And I feel like it's almost like, oh, what was that?
I have no idea.
Why do you have an alarm set for 3:59? That's the most... Did somebody call you?
No, that was an alarm of some sort. No, I must have been
You set a timer?
I set a timer for 9 minutes
Why?
at 3:50. I accidentally clicked it like this when I went to click over to the stopwatch. That's my bad. Sorry, guys. Sorry if you just had a heart attack while you were driving or something.
Hopefully not. Hopefully we're not. But I hope you're okay. Anyway,
Sorry.
Psalms, Hymns, and Spiritual Songs. That's an album by Shane and Shane that they do a lot of psalms,
Yes.
hymns, and
Yep.
spiritual songs.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's wonderful, and you should go listen to it. Teaching and admonishing to one another in all wisdom. If the word, I feel like this is all like interwoven to the next part. It's like, if the word of Christ is dwelling in you richly, then you will be teaching and admonishing to one another in all wisdom. And if you're singing psalms, hymns, and spiritual songs, then you are teaching and admonishing to one another. And if you have thankfulness in your heart, then you clearly did all these things. Right.
Mm-hmm.
Good job.
That's just another example of the fruit. It's
I feel like a lot of Paul's messages are like, it's almost like when you take a test and you answer one question and the next question is based off your previous answer. And you're like, oh, I totally had the last answer wrong because this answer is clearly related to the last one. Or this question is clearly related to the last answer, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And so it's like, okay, I can go back and fix that. And I feel like Paul's like messages a lot of times are like, people are reading through these things and they're like, oh, I didn't do that. And then they can go back and fix whatever was before and be able to do it correctly the next time.
Yeah.
And I think that's a unique thing about Paul.
That's a really good analogy. Did you just think of that by yourself?
Yeah.
Trademark that or something. That's brilliant.
The pastor's stealing my ideas.
Yeah.
On the mic.
Yeah.
With our 6 listeners.
Yeah. You don't have to call back to when I was talking about my 6 listeners. Okay, we have almost 40 subscribers on YouTube, and we have 91 followers on Instagram. So we've got some people that listen.
Hey, one of those listeners is myself. So, yay!
Yes.
One of the listeners is you.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yay! And the rest is our family.
Yeah. Listen, if you are listening to this, tell your friends if you like it. Anyway, back to the Bible. So this whole thing, right? Chapter 3 is put on the new self.
Yeah.
Okay, we didn't read the whole chapter, but I forgot this is my dad's favorite passage of scripture. So there you go, Dad. Putting on the new self though is something that is very, when you apply that to, because verse 12 literally says put on then as God's chosen ones. And then if you look at verse 5, it says put to death therefore what is earthly in you. And then so the whole message is putting on these things.
And then it's another example of Paul doing the same thing.
Yes. And so putting on the new self is something that is realizing that your old self is incorrect, it's wrong. And you have all of these, like he has a whole list in this verse 5 of sexual immorality, impurity, passion, evil desire, and covetousness, which is idolatry. And so that's all the old self things that you're trying to put away. Putting on this new self, it's almost like, I don't remember if I talked about it in a earlier podcast, but there is an earlier episode. No. There's this idea that when you kill your old self, when you put off your old self and put on the new self, the old self doesn't just go away. And that's hard because a lot of people are saying, well, I've got Jesus inside of me. Why am I not changing? It's because you have to live with your flesh and your sinful heart. The only difference is now you know what is wrong and what is right, and you ask Jesus to help you with that. And so putting on the new self is a daily task. It's not something that you can just put on and say, okay, I'm good now. I'm going to head to heaven. And you can head to heaven, but you have to constantly be killing. It's like John Owen, the Puritan, always says, you got to be killing sin or it'll be killing you. And so this is the same concept. It's putting on the old self, or putting on the new self, is something that kind of Jesus has to do for you. It's almost like he's helping you getting dressed in the morning, like your mom or your dad would do before school.
I mean, he's bringing you from death to life.
Right.
Which is like, if you go to a funeral and you see the person who is dead, and you're at visitation or whatever, and you're looking at their body and you're like, man, this is a terrible way to remember this person because they were alive and had all these great things going. And bringing from death to life is like the opposite of what we see on earth in life to death. So you want to remember the person for their life and not look at them and remember them for their dead, actual physical body.
Yeah.
But what Jesus does is kind of opposite. He takes like the dead and kind of like, I don't want to remember it that way, and brings you into life that is beautiful and full and has all these moments of like, wow, this is so good. And this is what I want to remember. And so I feel like when you are born again and you have accepted Jesus, it's like the opposite of what the world teaches you in the culture of like funerals and stuff, of like going, seeing, and remembering their life, but you have to still see them. And so like a family member of mine is like, I just don't go up to the caskets because I just don't want to remember them that way. And so I feel like a lot of times we avoid looking at the casket of who we were before, but we're still at the funeral.
The death still happened.
And the death still happened.
You can't ignore the death. It's an event that happened.
Yeah, but you're like, but I'm living now, and I want to do the good things, and I want to remember the good things. But it's still there, and it still happened. And you still have to be around the people who saw that and lived with it and call back to it sometimes. I mean, there will be times that I'm with old friends, and they're like, oh, do you remember when we did this? And I was like, ooh, I did do that, didn't I? Ooh. That's not ideal.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's sort of the concept that I'm trying to get at, is like a lot of God's kingdom seems a little like backwards and upside down. And upside down is kind of the analogy we use at camp of God's kingdom is an upside down kingdom. And so things seem a little backwards because you're not being brought from life to death, but from death to life. You're, I don't know. I guess I'm just repeating this.
No,
now.
that's good. Add on to it as much as you can. Sometimes people just need to hear it at a slightly different angle to understand it. There is a spot in Romans, and I'm not sure if it is in Romans or if it's there's another spot that also says the same thing, but it's like, how am I supposed to know what being alive is like if I never died? How am I supposed to know what freedom is like if I was never chained? Or how am I supposed to know what, it's in a Toby Mac song too. But this idea that like, if we just try to forget the dead, forget the bad stuff that happens, it's hard to be able to understand where we are and how far we've come. And so that's almost like why God allows you to struggle with some things, not makes you struggle, but allows you to struggle with some things, because it reminds you that you can't do this by yourself, and this is part of your new life. You have to trust Jesus for that. So that's a slightly different topic, but I'm just remembering that, like, how would I ever supposed to know that I was free if I'd never been chained? Not like I'm glad I was chained necessarily, but like it's a good way to show the difference, the dichotomy, the drasticness of your salvation. So, yeah, I think that's a lot of great stuff.
And whatever you do, in word or deed, do everything in the name of the Lord Jesus, giving thanks to God the Father through him.
Mm-hmm.
Good reminder.
It's a good reminder.
Thanks, Paul.
Thanks, Paul.
Thanks, God.
Thanks, dude.
You just called God dude?
No, I called Paul dude.
Well.
I'm sorry, God. So anyway, so spiritual songs, hymns, spiritual songs is something that's very controversial
songs.
because people always say, well, what does that really mean? Well, for Shane and Shane, it means music and singing to God with that.
Yeah, I mean, they literally turned the Psalms back into songs like they used
with
to.
melodies, right. We don't have those melodies, and that's why it's so cool to have them now. Or at least to have an adaptation of it.
Yeah.
An interpretation, I should say.
Yeah.
And music is really great, so much so that I have a song that I have been listening to a lot recently. Mm-hmm. This song is Driveway by Cody Johnson. I know I don't...
You already did Driveway.
Look, I don't think I did.
I'm almost certain
okay.
you did.
Here we go. Ready? We'll see. I would like to point out something else. I updated the Spotify Song of the Week.
Song of the Week
playlist.
So
I updated everything on there. So if you want to go check that out, it's got the same logo in the front of it as the podcast on Spotify does. So it'll get confusing. But the playlist is called Spotify Song STW something. I'm still looking for it. I'm stalling for time. Aha, STW. Yeah, Ladle and Peas STW playlist. If it's on here, so the only Cody Johnson songs I've done is Longer Than She Did.
You've definitely talked about Driveway
Jesus Love You.
before.
Maybe. But Driveway is something that I'm trying to do for...
Walk up the driveway.
Yes. Look, I've been copyright striked twice on these
if
videos.
I sing it, they're not going to copyright strike me because Cody Johnson does not want to be associated
with
my version of the
because
song.
I play too much of the song when I try to play it in the mic for you guys. And so Russia can't hear it. So I'm sorry, listeners
sorry,
in Russia. I'm going to only play less than 10 seconds.
It's too much for you.
I'm going to listen to only 10 seconds of it, less than 10 seconds, just to see
the
how
Russians
it goes.
hate country music unless you're Brennan.
Here we go. Let's see. We're at 30 seconds, so I got to do less than 29.
Driveway to Grandma, saying y'all come and get it. Me and Granddaddy just getting back from some fishing.
It's 1 second over. I wonder if they'll kill me. Anyway. So that song, I've been listening to it over. What? Okay, kill? I'm sorry. I will bleep that. I wonder if they will unalive me.
No, you're just rebellious.
Oh.
1 second over.
Yes. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. So that song I've been listening to like on repeat because
for months.
Well, no, recently.
Since last semester.
No, I know, but like recently, every single time I leave Dryer to go somewhere else, I listen to that song twice.
Dryer Hall, his dormitory.
And then every time I go back to Dryer from somewhere, I listen to it twice, and I'm singing it as much as I can because Thomas and I want to play it at the very least. It's up to you whether or not you want to join us. I would certainly love for you to.
Are you doing it for Joe's Live?
That's what I was getting at. Joe's Live, hopefully.
I thought you were doing it with me first. What happened to that?
No, I do want to do it with you, but I thought
now you're
you
doing
would.
it with Tom?
No, Thomas is going to play guitar for us, and I thought you said that the harmonies were too difficult to sing. But I'm also trying to do Sailboat with you, but you also said that it was probably too high. So
no, it's too low for me.
Oh, it's too low.
And if we take it up, it's too high for you.
You're right. Well, just you go higher. I didn't say that. Erase that. My point is, that's this thing I've been listening to over and over and over and over again. Yes, it's a song I listened to over and over and over again a while ago, but now it's been a lot just because I'm trying to get it in my head and really get the lyrics down and just sing it and stuff. So shout out to Thomas who's going to play that hopefully for us, the electric part.
Thomas McCann
and his wife. Thomas and wife.
Mr.
and Mrs. Thomas.
McCann.
Yes. So that's my song. Do you have a song?
I do have a song.
Go on.
And one that I picked out more than 30 seconds ago. I'll have you know.
Okay, I don't see it on the our wonderful little page here, so
okay.
I don't believe you.
It's because I don't use the Google Doc anymore. He always has this Google Doc that has all the outline stuff.
Yes, it's planning. It's.
I have the plan in my head.
Oh, I have. Well,
she's rebellious too, I guess.
They're
2 peas in a pod. Hey.
Rim shot.
Wait, hold on.
Oh. Yeah.
I'm getting better.
Yes, good job.
But
Yeah.
anyway, my song is called Boogie Wonderland. And it's another Just Dance song.
Did we preview this before we put it out on the Boogie Wonderland? It's a Just Dance song.
It's by Earth, Wind, and Fire.
Oh, okay. September. That's the only thing that they are good at writing. I shouldn't say that. I take that back. I don't know. I haven't listened to it.
I don't think it's on Just Dance, so I don't think.
Which one? We have all of them.
3.
Okay.
I don't think it can be explicit if it's on Just Dance.
Siblings. So. If we have it, we'll have to dance to it now.
Anyway,
I don't know.
Another one of the dances that I did during COVID with all of my friends that we memorized at some point or another. We don't remember this one anymore, but it's still good. And it still has a lot of good memories associated with it from, I think it was like either a little bit before lockdown or like just after lockdown ended or something, when we were all actually allowed to hang out again. And
when was that? Because March was when everything went down for me.
I feel like it was the summer because we were all in. There's a video of us dancing too.
Okay.
So it's around somewhere. I think Luke has it maybe, or Jess. But anyway, we each had an assigned character because it was like a 4-character dance on Just Dance. And so we each had one, and so we each would have our little solo moment things, and it was just a lot of fun. And it's a fun song. I mean, it makes you want to dance.
On Spotify to put it on the playlist?
Yes, I just found it on Spotify to make sure it wasn't explicit.
Okay.
After I already said it.
Yeah, okay.
But
all right.
It's by Earth, Wind, and Fire, so you know them from the song September. Do you remember?
21st night of September. Yeah.
That song, Earth, Wind, and Fire.
Careful.
This song.
Don't want to get striked.
Hey, they don't want to be associated with my singing voice, so they were not going to copyright strike me.
You're right.
Boogie Wonderland is also by them, and it's got kind of a similar groove to it, but I like it. It's a very danceable
something you
song.
Can
dance.
It's got a beat, so you can dance to it. It's got a beat, and you can dance to it. That's a Back to the Future quote, believe it or not.
Oh. There you go. Did I say that?
No,
you said that.
It's got a beat and you can dance to it.
Oh, you said that.
It's kind of. I always picture him being kind of sarcastic about it. It's in the third movie when someone is talking about the music that's going on. It's like, this is great music, and Marty's like, yeah, it's got a beat and you can dance to it. I always picture him being like a little sarcastic about it, but I don't know if that's just something common they said in 1885. But
yeah. Anyway, Back to the Future stuff.
Yes, Back to the Future.
We had our Back to the Future moment. And now we're back to the future, the present, back to the present.
Back to the pod.
Back to now. But yeah, that's my song for the week. So
okay, good on you.
And then your computer just was in my frame.
I'm sure the camera's on me. Gah!
Wrong.
You should see what Mia just said on Might Be Real.
What? Why are you looking at Joe B?
No, because she just commented on it and it was really funny, and I'm not going to say it into the microphone. Okay, so what I want to talk about now is a bit of some. I had this idea last night when I was thinking about some. Actually, it was early this morning when I was thinking about things to talk about music-wise, and I thought about so music is amazing. How does it affect us, and how does it affect our brain, right? Yeah. Because we kind of know generally that music can really do some stuff to us. And so I'm going to read a little bit off of some of these websites here, and we're going to just kind of talk about it. This is Pfizer's website. I don't know if we just lost some listeners because I said the word Pfizer. It's just because they're health people, okay? So this is about music and mood. Listening to or making music increases blood flow to brain regions that generate and control emotions. The limbic system, which is involved in processing emotions and controlling memory, lights up when our ears perceive music. The chills you feel when you hear a particularly moving piece of music may be the result of dopamine, a neurotransmitter that triggers sensations of pleasure and well-being. As your brain becomes familiar with a particular song, your body may release dopamine upon hearing just a few notes of the song, just as Pavlov's dogs learned to associate food with a ringing bell. So this is very similar to classical conditioning, right? So you hear a song that you really like, and then every time you hear it after that, you kind of get that shot of dopamine. This is when my dad would say, Pavlov's dog ring a bell, which is a funny joke. Come on. Why? Okay, well, if it was forced, it's not funny. Interestingly, music can affect our mood even if we can't recognize or replicate the notes and rhythm. Science has documented numerous instances of people who suffered brain injuries and lost their ability to distinguish melodies, but retained the ability to recognize the emotion conveyed by music. Researchers noted that these patients have sustained damage to the temporal lobes of the brain, a region involved in comprehending melody. The frontal lobes, which play a role in emotional regulation, were unaffected. So this is very similar to what we talked about in comms, where you have the people who are who have Alzheimer's or are like degrading in their health, and they can't really have any motor function, a lot of brain movement. But when you stick headphones on them and play music that they've heard before, they start to kind of light up and they dance and they talk and they sing, and these are things that they haven't done for months. And so we know that's a thing that can happen. And so let's see. I'm going to go to another website. This is called Your Brain on Music. This is by Pegasus, University of Central Florida. So they have this big list. This little paragraph says, turns out whether it's rock and roll, jazz, hip hop, or classical, your gray matter prefers the same music you do. It depends on your personal background, that scientist says. I can't pronounce his name. For a while, researchers believed that classical music increased brain activity and made its listeners smarter, a phenomenon called the Mozart effect.
Right.
Not necessarily true.
Play your baby some Mozart and they'll be smarter.
Right. In recent studies, they found that people with dementia respond better to music they've grown up listening to. If you play someone's favorite music, different parts of the brain light up. That means memories associated with music are emotional memories, which never fade out, even in Alzheimer's patients, which is what we were just talking about in the comms thing. And then they have this big list of music can change your ability to perceive time, tap into primal fear, reduce seizures, make you a better communicator, make you stronger, boost your immune system, assist in repairing brain damage, make you smarter, evoke memories, help Parkinson's patients. So those are some pretty big stuff, I think. There's another website here, Time Magazine did a very similar how music affects the brain. I didn't read through to find any specific parts to read. I thought if there was anything in here interesting, I would find it. But so taking what we know about how music can affect the brain. Oh wait, the camera's on me anyway, so that doesn't matter. How music can affect the brain. I just want to talk about like some things where you feel like music has affected you or me. I mean, it's this conversation. But,
sure. I mean, well, to start out with, when I want to relax in the car, most people play like soothing jazz or like some feel-good music. I play like heavy metal.
Did we talk about this before?
I don't know if we've talked about it on the podcast before, but we've definitely had this conversation before.
I think it was in a bloopers thing or something.
Yeah.
I can't remember.
But like on the way to school or whatever, to get in the mode for school, I'd be like listening to some heavy metal and be like, yep. Or like after school, put it on in the car. I don't know why though, and it just like makes me feel more collected. I guess it's because it's like the chaos that I feel is like put into music, and then it's controlled. So that kind of brings it together for me. But I don't know. There's a lot of people that have like their cry playlists. They put on to cry, and the song always makes them cry then. Even if they're not like sad. Like there was one time in 6th grade, and I remember my friend, there was what's the song? It's been a long day.
Oh, yeah, that song by Charlie Puth.
Yeah, the Charlie Puth song.
That's in the Fast and Furious songs or movies.
That song played.
See You Again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That song played, and this kid like, who was like very. Not an emotional person and a good friend of mine, and he just like broke down crying and ran out of the classroom. And we were all like,
Oh.
We were just listening to music while we were doing like homework time. And this kid just, he's out. And we were all like, is he okay? And our teacher was like,
Well, I don't know.
I don't know. And so she sent somebody to go see if he was in the hallway still. And he was. But I don't know. It's just like that, like a song. And it was like because it reminded him of his aunt. And his aunt had just died.
Yeah.
So it was like, boom. It's association with, somebody that meant a lot to him. Or there's like good memory association, like the song that I chose today has good memory association to it, and I listen to it when I'm like, yeah.
And it's a relatively silly song.
Yeah.
I guess not silly, but it's
songs
boogie.
with Larry. VeggieTales, anybody?
Yeah.
But then there's songs that I listen to when I want to think about camp and that kind of stuff. And then there's songs that I listen to when I want to be angry. And most of that is rap music. Rap music's my angry music, for sure. Heavy metal's my relaxed music.
Which
Rap
is crazy.
my angry music.
There must have been some sort of something that I know it's also kind of like an emotional release for you. Like if you're feeling tense or built up, the rock kind of takes it, or the metal kind of takes it out of you like a magnet.
I think it was that like I used to listen to it in the car, like if my dad wasn't playing country music, it was kind of more like heavy metal music in the car. So.
And those were calm moments for you?
Yeah, country music makes me so absurdly annoyed and upset. Dang it. But the heavy metal just soothes the soul. But jazz I listen to when I want to try and think it'll make me focused, but really I know I'm just going to be focused on the instrumentals and nerd out about it a little bit, so I don't actually get anything done.
Oh, man.
What?
It just really stinks.
I know you love your country music. I don't. My mom and my sister and I were listening to the last episode of the podcast together, and your 60s country song played, and my mom started laughing, and I was like, what? She was like, this is like what my dad listens to.
Yes, it's Big Iron from last week.
Big Iron.
Marty Robbins, like Loretta Lynn, Buck Owens.
Yeah.
All these guys are I said staples last week, but and I mean it. It's they're very important for how the rest of country, phases into its different things. The 70s are different, the 80s are different, the 90s are different. It changes. And don't giggle at me. I have reasons to want to. Now here's the thing. The reason I started to really do that is because I realized that I have all these desires to, like I love real country, I love true country, but I don't really know if I understand what true country is, because I like the stuff about, I'm not going to bang the table.
You just did like 3 times.
No, I didn't.
Yes, you did.
I didn't even touch the table.
You did too.
That's banging the table.
Yeah, you did that like 3
I did not.
times.
No-uh.
Yeah-huh.
No-uh.
Yeah-huh.
Okay, put it in the comments if I bang the table or not.
Continue on your country music.
So I'm like, do I know what old country is? Do I understand it? And so there are some stuff that I don't like from the 60s, but there's a lot of stuff that I do like. Johnny Cash and just a lot of stuff, people that I do like. In fact, I grew up on it almost. My mom would play me Trailer for Sale or Rent by Rats. I can't remember his
By
name.
Rats? Rats made the music?
Rats? Crazy?
That was crazy.
And so I remember distinctly sitting on the kitchen counter listening to this song. Roger Miller. Yes, King of the Road. It's a great song. And I just grew up on that. And so my mom always talks about how those like Johnny Cash, Roger Miller kind of songs just really got to me as a kid. And so I knew it was in there somewhere. And so now I'm going to go through and find what's in the 70s. Anyway, that's a whole other thing. The point is, it's sad that country music doesn't make you happy like it does me.
I have other music to make me happy.
Like Metallica.
Yeah.
And Iron Maiden and
Yeah.
Kiss.
Yeah.
I don't even think those are not metal. They're just pretty hard rock.
Yeah.
But anyway.
I was gonna say not quite, but.
So yeah. So music affecting your brain. Right.
Mhm.
That's where we were.
But also, it can affect your spiritual.
Yes.
side of
And so.
Because I just had like a factory reset in my brain. Oh my god.
We're gonna have to cut that silence. It's too much silence.
Too
People
much
can't deal with silence.
I can't deal with silence. Stop looking at me
Okay,
like
so
that.
spiritual stuff. When we think about worship music, okay, and how does that affect us? How can that bring us closer to God or push us away? Because we talk about worship music on this podcast a lot, and so there's a lot of controversies. There's a lot of things that people don't like about worship music because there's this idea of the drum fill or the drum the drum swell. That's what it's called. A lot of major worship bands will use this drum swell, like the as the things build up during the bridge to kind of invoke this emotional, uproar, basically. And it can be used in a very manipulative way. I'm not saying that's how it always is.
Try and get you excited.
In fact, it's actually like, I think, a good 50-50 split. Like it might be emotional manipulation, it might not be. There's a lot of bad stuff out there, but there's a lot of good stuff. And so it's also a cautionary thing. Don't think that every worship music is trying to get you an emotional thing. I don't want to get too deep in this because we can get to actually offending people with like spiritual stuff. And so all I'm trying to say is worship music can also affect you in a positive or negative way.
Mm-hmm.
Does that bring you to what you were going to say, or do you just not remember?
I mean, it's just I limit myself to how much other music that I listen to.
Right.
Because it gets me in a really, I stick to worship music.
Mm-hmm.
And, every year my Spotify Wrapped is the same. It's like, oh, CCM, that's your main category. And I'm like, great.
Mm-hmm.
And everybody else is like some hip indie whatever.
Yeah.
But mine is always the same. So, but it's also like, if I listen to other things, like, I don't know who the big people are right now, but my first thing that came to mind is like Kanye or Drake or something like that. If I listen to them, I'm just going to be in like kind of a different state.
Headspace.
Yeah, I guess, or like Billie Eilish, Olivia Rodrigo, that kind of stuff. It just makes me feel like the world is terrible and I'm forced to live in it.
Yeah.
And everybody sucks and hates me, and I don't want to love anybody ever again. And
there are a lot of cuss words in there, and you got
to and then it gets you on the swear.
Right.
Swearing.
There's a lot of people who say, I only listen to this music. I don't listen to the lyrics and stuff. But we've just proven that music will affect your brain whether you like it or not. And so you can't just listen to music and just forget the lyrics and say, I only listen to the beats, the rap. That stuff will, it's very much like we can even get into the territory of like the Poop Brownie. Like that my mom always talks about. Like, and that goes with movies. It goes with any content. You listen to stuff like that and it puts it in, it's like, okay, so I was watching Yellowstone for a while, and Can
you explain the concept of the Poop Brownie to the audience?
Oh, yes.
They just don't know what you're talking about.
So there's a story that my mom tells me of this girl who wants to go see this movie. It's an R-rated movie. It's violent. It's got lots of inappropriate language, sex scenes, all these things, right? And she's like, I want to go see it. All my friends are going to go see it. It looks like a really good movie. And she looks it up online, and she realizes it's not a good movie to watch. And she's like, please, Mom, I want to go see it. She's like, no. She's like, well, you're so mean and you're a horrible mother. And she's like, fine, go clean up the poop in the dog's poop out in the yard and bring it in here, and you can go to the movie. She's like, great. So she picks up the dog poop, and then she gets ready for the movie. Well, when she comes back down, her mom's got a big steaming plate of brownies that she just made. She's like, here you go. I figured you could take some treats to your friend while you go see your movie. She's like, awesome, thanks. And then she's like, but before you leave, I just want to tell you that I put some of the dog poop in one of those brownies. She's like, what? She's like, I put some of the dog poop in one of those brownies. She's like, what do you mean? And she's like, you would never be able to tell. You can't smell it. You really can't taste it. But there's dog poop in one of those brownies. And so, but you don't know which one. And so the concept is when you consume this media, music, film, even novel, like reading books, and you are reading things that can affect your brain, it's like you don't realize it's happening to you, but it's changing your brain. And so the example I was going to get into here was Yellowstone. That is that show about the ranch Yellowstone in Montana. And it's I'm not going to say it's a good show because it really isn't. I love watching the cowboy stuff. It's filmed in Montana, so it's beautiful scenery. They ride horses. It's all about real cowboys. But it's so violent. There's blood and gore and just all these horrible things, lots of swearing, horrible things. And I really liked watching it because it was like exciting. Oh, and it was risque, and it was like this.
I think both times that I walked by you and you were watching it, somebody had like just died.
Oh yeah.
And I was like,
I ended on a horrible episode. I kind of came to this realization that, okay, this stuff is starting to affect the way that I see the world. It's starting to affect the way that I see people and situations. Like if something's making me mad, I'm thinking about how I'm going to kill them so violently. And I don't mean that literally like I had those thoughts, that was the kind of train of thought that I started to go on, right? And so my dad and my mom did a good job of encouraging me to not watch it. Yeah. And I was like, it's fine. I know how to differentiate. I watch it just to see how I know the gospel should be played out. Like I watch it to know what not to do.
You make excuses.
Right. Well, I came to the point where I was like, this is nuts. They're dissing Christianity now. They're talking about how God's not real. I can't watch this anymore. So I finished the episode I was watching, and I shouldn't have. I mean, it was the most violent episode ever, and I shouldn't have watched it, and I totally regret it. But same thing goes for like pornography and stuff like that. That will affect your brain and the way you see. That's why it'll affect the way guys will see women and how they treat them. And so
absolutely.
This whole concept goes for everywhere. And I don't know how we even got on this track, but you were talking about how
spiritual.
It can affect your spiritual music, can affect your moods. And oh yeah, you're talking about the music that you listen to. You try not to listen to that. That's a great way to stay away from those things that can affect the way that you think.
And some people are even around campus are like, well, that's silly. It doesn't mean that much. Like it doesn't make that big of a difference. Like I still listen to this person or that person, and I'm like, that might be great for you, and it might not affect you as much, but it really does affect me. And I just can't listen to it. And so I'd be in the car and I'd be like, hey, can we change the music?
Yeah.
And they'd be like, I'm not changing my music. And I was like, well, okay. That's all right. I am a sister in Christ who is stumbling because of this music, and you are continuing to output it to me.
Yeah.
What does the Bible say about that?
Yeah, that's a good point.
And I'm like, I have more awareness now for when people are like, hey, that really bothers me. I'm like,
oh, okay.
Oh, that like really puts them in a bad place and makes them feel bad. So I'm not going to do that anymore because I'm not going to be the reason that they're struggling, you know? So. Yeah. So music can affect you in really good ways, really bad ways. It can be used as manipulation. And it can be used to, bring you closer to God. That's really a good way it can be used. That's why the hymns exist. That's why the Psalms exist. These are things that were musical at the time that were to bring you closer to the Lord in any way they can. And so just be conscious of that when you're out in the world and you're watching movies or you're reading books or you're listening to music. Like, how is this affecting the way that I see things, the way that I hear things? It's all connected. Just like a track that a car would race around. Just like a NASCAR, some might say. Now listen, we don't have a lot of time. Thank you. We don't have as much time as you did for marching band, so right. I'm going to go through what I can. We kind of skipped over music stuff for my marching band. Right. Thing, but we just talked about it. But NASCAR is not something everybody's interested in, so I'm just going to talk about it for a little bit. Neither is marching band. Oh, that's not true. Everybody should be interested in marching band now because of everything you talked about. There you go. So, not everybody loves NASCAR.
let's talk about what people. I should have written out a list, but let's talk about what people do. Now, I'm opening for both of you ladies questions and anything you have you want to say. No hate speech, please.
I hate NASCAR.
So here's what people perceive NASCAR to be. What?
I said no, I don't.
Okay. They perceive these cars to be going around in circles for a few hours, and it's boring.
What's so good about turning left?
Right. That's how people perceive it. Well, do you have a question?
No, I have a statement.
Okay, go ahead.
Every time you turn NASCAR on in like the big common spaces and stuff around campus, I'll notice that people will walk by and then they'll be like, gosh, what's so cool about people turning left and turning left and turning left? And then some like big crash or something will happen and they'll be like, whoa! And then they'll all sit down for a little while and then they're like, they're just turning left and turning left and turning left. Then some like big crash or something happens. They're like, ah! And they sit down and watch for a little more. And I'm like,
Really, guys?
you guys were just hating on him.
I
For,
never hear that.
Really?
I never hear that stuff. I'm
You're
so
locked in.
dialed in.
Yeah, I know. I am aware.
To degrading.
That's not the word you're looking for.
To a negative extent.
To an intense extent.
That becomes negative.
Sometimes.
So NASCAR stands for the National Association of Stock Car Auto Racing.
Oh.
Okay? Yes.
Huh.
So the way that this started, NASCAR started in the 50s, 1949 actually. And it started with, this is a sort of common fact, but just for some people who don't know, started with moonshiners. Moonshiners had these cars that were really fast, and they wanted to they wanted to outrun the cops. And so a lot of them would soup up their cars with different things that would make them go faster. One day, somebody said, wait a minute, who's got the fastest car around here? They're like, well, let's race. So out of that, the National Association of Stock Car Auto Racing, it wasn't called that at the time, was born out of moonshiners wanting to see who had the fastest car. And they would run it on the beach in Daytona Beach. They would run it up and down the beach. Eventually, they built a track in Daytona City, and that was that's now Daytona 500. That's the crown jewel event of NASCAR. It's the first race of the season because that's how it started. And so as the years went up, a lot of people got arrested. A lot of people went to jail, and it became just kind of this thing. It just became a sport that people wanted to go watch. Well, I don't know how to start. A lot of people say, well, it's not a sport. It's just easy to hold the wheel to the left. Well, when you're driving a NASCAR, when you're driving a stock car, you are going upwards to 150 to 180 miles an hour these days. Okay, and as you are turning left on these banked turns, you're pulling G-forces, and you're constantly having to fight the car because the car wants to go up the track as you're turning left at this speed, and you have to fight it to keep it down. And so these athletes, these drivers go through rigorous training, and these are just fact. This isn't just something that is speculation. This is just something they do. They work out. They do a lot of working out. They do training. They have like very similar to how an astronaut would train to go to space.
Is it kind of like how astronauts sit in that thing and they have to go?
Yes, they learn how to deal with the forces. It's very similar to that. They get in simulations to learn how to race around the track. And these cars are loud and they're fast and they are hard to control. When someone is in the car turning left, it's not easy for them. They have to, it takes exertion and force to keep yourself in that seat. You are strapped into this incredible setup, A, to keep you safe, but B, to keep you in the seat when you're turning left, right? The other thing is people say, well, it's boring to watch. Well, for some people, it is boring to watch. It takes a lot of understanding what's happening and having a stake in who you want to win to really want to get excited
and there's
about
also times in other sports that it's really boring to watch. The Super Bowl was so boring this year. My mom has said it's like watching paint dry.
Mm-hmm.
But other times, football is really interesting and people are
It's
really
exciting. Yeah, it's the same thing. I think it's exciting all the time, but some people would think that it's boring. NASCAR, that is. But when you have a stake in the game, when you have a driver you want to win, you understand what's happening because there's a lot happening like between the different types of tracks. There's a short track. A short track is something that is less than a mile long usually. It usually doesn't have a lot of banks. Bristol Motor Speedway has a lot of bank, and that's a short track. That's actually where we're going this weekend. But then there are super speedways, and those are like Daytona 500. These are like Atlanta is a smaller super speedway, but like Talladega. These are huge racetracks that are upwards to, I think, 3 miles long. And it takes them over a minute to get around the whole track, going at 180 miles an hour. These tracks are all raced differently, and you have different setups in the cars. Sometimes you have different engines in the cars. They may all look different, but all the cars may look different, but they all do different things. Because in the short track, you are only going up to like third gear, and these cars only have about 5 gears, or 4 gears. Now they have 5 as of recent. But you are going down the backstretch, and you're shifting up, and maybe you're shifting down, or you're doing something as you go around the turns. You have to slow way down, right? Well, at the super speedways, you can hold the throttle wide open the whole time and ride the bottom, and you can go around this track. And so we call those tracks draft tracks, because the only way you're going to get ahead of everybody is if you're in the draft. Now, the draft is something that's very similar. There's something that a lot of people know about. It's like when you get behind a giant semi-truck on the highway and you start to feel your car kind of move around a little bit. It's almost a little difficult to stay in a straight line because of the air. When you have a car going, so this is why I wish I had my little Matchbox car. The air is going over the car, right? And then as it goes over the spoiler, it kind of dips down. Well, when you get a car right up behind you, that air starts to flow over the other car. And it can make the back car go faster because it's not have as much wind resistance, which means it pushes the front car even faster than that. So that's why you see those groups of cars all grouped together, racing together. Those tracks have a lot of wrecks. That's what makes them exciting. They have the big one is what they call it. They always have one big wreck where everybody is just everywhere. Something goes wrong. It's usually somebody gets right rear cornered, or I guess that would be this way, but left rear cornered, and it kind of dips into somebody else, and then they could turn and hit the wall, and everybody just goes crazy.
By right rear corner, he's talking about the car in the rear hitting the car in front of them.
Yes. So like if you think about
left.
If you think about two cars racing next to each other, side by side, the right one kind of slows down so that the front of the bumper is equal with the back of the bumper, the other one, but there's different lanes. And then the one on the right turns left, which pushes the right one.
Actually, the police do that.
Yes, it's called a pit maneuver.
Yeah.
It's the same thing. But they do it on accident in NASCAR, and then they wreck. Anyway, so there's a lot of nuances to NASCAR that a lot of people don't understand. And I think people do understand that there are nuances that they don't understand, but they don't care to look into them.
Yeah.
I will say that even now, it's a little bit less entertaining to watch, because in the past you have cars that were going even faster. There's a lot of things that today they put restrictor plates in their cars if it's a carbureted engine, which it still is a carbureted engine because you can't control whatever. Forget I said that. The cars can almost be, it's all about safety. And so sometimes when that's prioritized too much, it can be more boring to watch because they're going slower. But anyway, what else is there? Watching them go round and round is less boring than you think, because they're doing different things on different corners. It looks the same, but they're doing different things. On some tracks, it's better to be on the bottom when you're going around the corner.
Have you seen the hit movie Cars?
Yes, I've seen the best movie that Pixar ever made. Good job. That wasn't Pixar, was it?
Yeah, it was Pixar. It's on Disney. I don't know. But in that, the king gets hit and does this huge flip with the
yeah.
Boom, crash.
Mm-hmm.
That happens in real life.
Mm-hmm.
Are those people dead?
The last person to die in NASCAR was Dale Earnhardt Jr., the driver of the number 3 GM Goodrich car. He died on the last lap of the Daytona 500, smashed straight into the wall, and died in 2001. That was the last person to die.
2001. That was over 20 years ago.
Yes.
Wow.
And so every wreck you see after that, everyone lives. There is a list of people who die. Only one spectator in the history of NASCAR has ever died at a race. that's because they're so good at like the catch fences. That's what those things are called. Usually down the front stretch or down the tri-oval where the start finish line is.
Yeah.
Those big huge fences that go around the people, those are called catch fences. And those, the best thing if you want to look up. Oh, what? My camera's on me, so it doesn't matter. If you want to look up the way that the catch fence works, look up. I think it was 2013. Look up Austin Dillon Daytona crash. At some point, as they're coming around the start-finish line, he gets pit maneuvered in front of somebody else. That somebody else then gets underneath his door and flips him up over top of him, and he goes flying into the catch fence. And the catch fence goes woof, and it explodes. The car gets cut in half almost. The engine, there is a shot of the engine laying on the track and the car in the grass, and it's on fire. And he flips all around. He's on his lid. So he survives this. And so, but that's just a testament to see how the catch fence works, if you want to see that. But there is a list of people who have died. I can't remember. It's not a lot of people who have died in NASCAR. Obviously, in the past, when there was not as much safety regulations and not as many safety barriers and things, more people have died. But Dale Earnhardt is really one of the most memorable people who have died because he was an incredible race car driver.
Yeah.
And so his loss was really heavy for the sport and just in general. And so when you think of people who have died in NASCAR, he's really one of the only things that people think of. So I wish I had come up with a better way to explain all this. There's just a lot of things to talk about. There's practice, there's qualifying for these races that you have to get onto, and then there's the race itself. And so my only thing is watch a race, and maybe watch it with me if you wanna. I'll walk you through it, and
If you're around campus.
or send me an email. I'll come to your house.
Peas will roll up.
Yeah. I should have brought my jacket too. That would have been fun for this segment too. I'm sure we can talk about it later if anybody has any questions. Drop one in the comments or email us at the Ladle and Peas podcast email.
We have one of those?
Yes, we do.
Oh.
We have talked about it before too.
Yeah, email us.
Right now it's full of TikTok and YouTube notifications of subscribers and likes.
Gotcha.
Yeah. So that being said, NASCAR is awesome. It is a lot more nuanced than you think. A lot more things that go into it.
Yeah, I'm sure you'll hear more about NASCAR in future episodes.
If I can't,
Peas will never pass up a chance to talk about NASCAR.
No. If I think of anything else that I can
Describe.
Maybe I should have done that in the first season instead of car parts. Go through different parts of NASCAR and talk about how they work. I don't know. That would have been better for the short game, but
anyway, we will see you all after spring. Oh, we won't see you, but you'll see us after spring break.
Yep.
In 2 weeks, and maybe get to hear a little bit more about NASCAR. Hear some more scripture. Hear some more music. And some more stories about spring break, hopefully.
And in the meantime,
share
this with as many people as you can.
And please be in prayer for the students at Moody for spring break. We would just have rest. It's been a very stressful first 8 weeks of the semester, and we have a whole another 8 weeks after we get back. So
there's a lot of people going to mission trips and stuff, and the orchestra is going out on tour.
Orchestra's going on tour. Chorale is going on tour. And there's mission trips going to Mexico, I think.
Yep, the PCM trips.
Yep, there's PCM trips going to Mexico, I'm pretty sure. And somewhere else. I'm not entirely sure. You can look it up online. But be in prayer for those people. And we will see you after spring break with another heaping healthy ladle of peas. We will see you guys later.